This module discusses the uh, urinary system as you know it, or the renal system, as well as the ureters and the bladder. Pag sinabing renal, you'll probably come across it several times. When you say renal, it pertains to the kidneys. So yun lang siya. So the kidneys, uh, their main function is to filter blood, no? So yung blood nyo continuously circulating, and as you might recall, during its circulation, it passes by the spleen. So yung mga red blood cells that are dysfunctional or are old are constantly removed and recycled in that site. So in a way kasi, the blood is composed of the good stuff, which is your nutrients, the active cellular components plus water. But then again, you have byproducts as well. So every time that it goes around the systemic circuit, particularly, uh, it also carries with it excess hydrogen ions, excess sodium, excess chloride, excess substances na that are byproducts of metabolism like urea or uric acid or ammonia in some cases. So the kidneys are responsible for filtering out some substances uh, to be excreted as waste and to filter out some substances to regulate the content of plasma sa dugo. Kasi pagka umikot siya pabalik sa katawan na with excess or nakulang dun sa content na yon, dahil hindi na-regulate yung kidney, pwedeng magkaroon ng sakit yung tao. As well as, apart from removing or filtering out waste, the kidneys are responsible for regulation of pH sa dugo. You might have encountered this in your lifetime na, oh, acidic ako or alkaline, dapat alkaline water ang iniinom, no? Uh, you do not have to drink anything to regulate pH in the body. Uh, at saka, kung acidotic ka, hindi ka dapat nasa bahay, nasa ER ka na dapat. Kasi acidosis as a condition is actually very problematic for the body, and there will be obvious symptoms, no? So, tandaan ha, may kidneys tayo to regulate pH in the body as well as electrolytes, no? So, maintain the electrolyte balance and blood pH. And then lastly, to detect and to contribute to the control of blood pressure. If you will recall, sa endocrine discussion, you have your vasopressin, the ADH, which acts on the kidneys, as well as aldosterone. The kidneys are an important part of a system that regulates blood pressure by the minute sa katawan. So let's look at the kidneys themselves. You have them here. So the kidneys are located in the abdominal cavity sa pinakalikod. Okay? Uh, right anterior to the 11th and 12th ribs, no? Sa left kidney, whereas on the right kidney, anterior to the 12th rib, no? If you will notice in the drawing sa anatomy, yung kidneys nyo uh, with their respective locations ay hindi pantay. The left kidney is slightly higher, located higher than the right kidney. That's because uh, the liver on the right side of the abdomen, yung right lobe niya, yun yung makapal na part, no? So its position there slightly pushes down the the kidney during development. No? So, si left kidney, marami siyang katabing organs. Definitely, you have the spleen, the stomach, the pancreas. On the left, andyan yung descending colon, no? Tsaka the left colic flexure. Tapos, si right kidney, you'll have there the right lobe of the liver. So, nasa baba siya, tsaka nasa bandang likod siya ng right lobe na yun. And then, definitely, the ascending colon. Tapos, sa harap niya will be the right colic flexure. Okay. Sige. So, yan, madali lang ang kidney in terms of anatomy. Uh, Anatomically speaking, we call them, they are what we call them retroperitoneal, meaning yung lining, the peritoneum, yung lining ng abdomen na nagko-cover sa buong abdominal cavity, the kidneys are located actually behind that lining. So, in a way, kahit nasa abdominal cavity siya, uh, they are more closely related to the muscles, the small muscles of the thoracic portion of the spine. Sa likod dyan. Kaya in the event na you have an injury sa rib, so tandaan, no? 11th and 12th sa left or 12th rib sa right, and you push the rib inward, there are there are high chances that the kidneys can be punctured by the rib that got pushed inward. Okay. So let's go to the kidney itself. Now, magkaiba yung position nila, pero the kidneys are identically equal in terms of gross and microscopic structure. So yung kidneys, meron silang capsule ay composed of fibrous connective tissue. Okay? So right here, called the renal capsule, the fibrous capsule. So yung fibrous capsule na yon is to protect the soft uh, tissue component of the kidney. And then through here, no, you see several tubes going in and going out. So this is your renal artery, the renal vein, and then this is where your ureter begins. No? So yung mga tubo na yan, they enter at a part of the kidney called the hilum, the renal hilum. Or sometimes, ang tawag sa kanya, hindi, same lang. So, renal hilum. Hindi lang kita dito. Ah. So, si kidney, na-mention ko kanina na filter siya. So, the filtration is done in small units. Ah, yung mga filtration na yon, nangyayari yon dito sa renal cortex, sa outer layer, yan, yung cortex natin. And then the renal medulla right here. If you will notice, the shape of the renal medulla, meron siyang mga portions dyan, no? Na parang triangular. Oh, so that's what we call a renal pyramid. Kasi yung filtration systems niya, nagko-converge kasi sila eh. From small units, millions, in the renal cortex, na dun umiikot yung dugo. Dun na-filter initially yung dugo. They all drain down. No? Kaya ganyan yung formation niya, mukhang pyramidal. So, after filtering down sa may renal medulla, magko-collect sila dito sa may renal papilla. Pag sinabing papilla, it's a small projection, no? And then, the renal papilla, kung ano yung mga maipon ng maliliit na droplets of formed urine there. May ipon sila dito sa may renal sinus. No? There. So, may mga sinuses tayo dyan of small openings. And then, after the sinus, uh, they converge pa further. So, pagkalapas ng renal papilla, tubo na yan. Bale, yung dulo ng filtration system ng kidney ends at the papilla. Tapos, you have your tubes leading down to the ureter na. So, you have the calyces, no? Calyx. So, meron kang minor calyx and then major calyx. So, pag sinabing minor calyx, yun lang yung mga tubes that lead directly to one renal papilla. And then when they converge, yung multiple tubes, say for example, itong tatlo. This is a renal pyramid, this is a renal pyramid, this is another renal pyramid. And then you have one papilla, one, and then one. Each of them drains down into one minor calyx each. So meron kang tatlong minor calyx converging into one major calyx. And then finally, all those major calyces, when they drain down, doon na sila sa may renal pelvis na iipon. No? So, at the renal pelvis, diretso na yan, paglabas ng hilum into the ureter. Okay. Now, let's go to the basic filtration unit. No, so this is what we call a nephron. Itong buo na to. So this one and all the tubes here, tapos yung makikita niyo maliliit na blood vessels coming from the renal artery and then going to the renal vein, and then this collecting tubule here. So the nephron is composed of uh, a glomerulus. So this one, okay? Itong buong unit na to. Hindi lang Bowman's capsule ha, tandaan. So a glomerulus and then yung mga tubo na to is what we call a tubular system. So, dyan nangyayari ang filtration ng urine. It's a very long topic to discuss, so hindi ko na isasama yon. Tandaan nyo lang yung microscopic structures involved. So, yung nephron na to, ito yung nandito sa may cortex and medulla. So, if you probably have a good guess now, the glomerulus, yung initial filtration unit, dito kasi dumadaan yung dugo. No? Tapos itong blood vessels natin, nagiging capillaries sila pagdating sa glomerulus. Pero yung capillaries dito, if you'll notice, mukha silang tuft of fibers. No? Parang if you've seen yung steel wool, yung pangkuskus, no? Parang ganun yung arrangement niya. Again, by principle of surface area, mas wavy, mas convoluted, mas maraming surface area, more efficient yung filtration kada pass ng dugo. No? And then lalabas dito, yung na-filter na dugo. So, every time that blood passes through here, may filtrate na lalabas. No? So, yung substances na ilalabas supposedly, may ipon dito sa loob ng capsule down to the tubular system. And then, the tubular system is there to make modifications dun sa fluid na na-filter out. Kasi pwede may dagdag, pwede may bawas, depende sa pangangailangan ng katawan. So, very responsive yung sistema na yan. And then, once all that is done, no, yung final output niya, itong mahaba na to, tsaka ito. Yan yung makikita sa medulla when you look into the microscope. So, when all of that is done, when all the processing is done, you have urine. No? So, may ihi. In the tubular system, there are several principles involved, but the thing that you'll just have to remember is yung sistema that moves substances in and out of that tubular system to fine-tune the final urine na lalabas is governed by principles of active and osmotic diffusion. Pag sabing active diffusion, yan yung uh, forcibly substances are made to move from one side of the tube to another. And then osmotic diffusion, yan yung rule na where salt goes or where kung ano man yung solute in high concentration, dun susunod yung tubig. Okay? Sige. So, pass through the anatomy. So, medalla, no? Tandaan, no? So, si cortex, nandyan ang glomerulus, and then yung initial portion of the tubular system, but majority of the tubular system is located in the medulla. Now, let's go to this. Okay. From the portion na renal pelvis na, all the way down, no? Meron tayong tinatawag na specialized epithelium called the urothelium or a transitional epithelium. Pareho lang yun. So, urothelium kasi very easy to remember. Urinary and then epithelium. No? Or we know it as transitional epithelium kasi nag-iiba siya. So, recall, ano ba ang epithelium? Usually, yan ang lining mo to protect. No? Like your skin, it's a keratinized epithelium. So, yung transitional epithelium natin, urine is highly concentrated to point toxic substance siya. Very concentrated siya in a sense na if you, an average cell, say red blood cell, kung ilulublob mo siya sa ihi, puputok siya. Kasi, hindi, mawawalan siya ng water content, si RBC, kasi concentrated, no? Or hyperosmolar ang urine. So, maraming substances sa urine na pwede pang ma-dilute. No? So, if there's any source of water in the urine, say for example, the red blood cell na ilulublob mo doon, the water in the red blood cell will tend to go out to try and dissolve the concentrated substances in urine. Pero in the case of your transitional epithelium or urothelium, it's designed in such a way na hindi siya magre-react dun sa effect na yun. Kasi, syempre, dyan dumadaan yung ihi. By the second, laging merong ihing dumadaan. Ah, sa bladder. Pagdating sa bladder, nakaipon yung ihi doon. So, to prevent the cells lining their uh, walls, no? The urothelium is capable of withstanding the osmotic pressure generated by the concentrated urine. Hindi siya nag-shrink, kaya ganyan yung design niya. If you look at the image here, no? So you'll see na parang from the bottom, ito yung normal na cells natin. Normal shape ng epithelium natin. Pero when it goes to the top, nearest to the surface of the bladder, na may contact yung ihi, mas parang nakalobo siya. Sometimes we call this as umbrella cells kasi mukhang umbrella, no? Nakapatong. So yung harang na yan gives it, kumbaga, a buffering size na pag may dumikit na ihi dito, concentrated, may onting lalabas siguro na tubig, pero hindi lahat, no? So it maintains that shape para yung the rest of the cells here are protected. When the bladder is not full, no, ganyan siya. Pero when the bladder becomes full, nasa stretch yung transitional epithelium, kaya mukha na siyang ganito. Okay. Uh, this is just for you to appreciate what the urothelium is. Pero for the purpose of this subject, tandaan nyo lang yung pangalan. Pagka nasa ureter na, nasa renal pelvis na, at saka nasa bladder na, all the way down to the urethra, palabas, urothelium ang lining ng mga tubo na yun. Okay, So let's go to the ureters. Very easy. So each kidney, one ureter, going down to the bladder. So yung ureters nyo, hindi sila tubo na lifeless. No? They're actually muscular. No? So, yung ureter, nagpe-peristalsis sila actually sa parang sa esophagus, no? To just bring down the urine kasi hindi sila pwedeng maipon sa ureter. Very small tubes. So kung maipon ang ihi dyan, pwedeng mag-form ng crystals, yung mga dissolved substances because concentrated nga siya. So it has to keep urine going down. So you have your left ureter. No? This is right beside the abdominal aorta. And then your right ureter, which is right beside the inferior vena cava. Okay? And then last, your urinary bladder and urethra. So the urinary bladder is just a hollow organ meant to store urine and then eventually eject urine pagka medyo napuno na siya. So capacitance yung trabaho niya. You have the urinary bladder for both males and females the same, meaning same structure sila. Kaya lang may dalawang image dyan kasi to tell you na the organs beside the bladder are different. So in males, you have the urinary bladder here, and then you immediately have the rectum posterior to it. So the urinary bladder is anterior to the rectum pag lalaki. Pero sa babae, because meron kang reproductive tract, you have the uterus right between the two structures. So sa babae, the bladder is anterior to the uterus. Kaya if you have brothers or sisters or tito-tita na buntis ngayon, no? Uh, Chances are they're experiencing difficulties urinating. No? Kasi malaki na yung uterus, nakapress na siya sa bladder lagi. So parang there's a feeling na naiihi lagi kahit walang ihi lumalabas. Kasi nasa-stimulate si bladder kahit walang lamang ihi because of the uterus. Now, the urethra, again, it's another hollow tube. Meron din urothelium to protect the rest of the cells from shrinking because of the urine that passes every day. And then, in males and females, there is a difference. No? Mas mahaba sa lalaki kasi because of the penis. And then, it's significantly shorter sa babae. So, the male urethra is longer. No? Tapos, it passes through the prostate gland pa. So, yung length na yun contributes to prevention of immediate na pag-akyat ng infections dun sa urinary tract. Whereas sa babae, shorter. Ihi lang ang dadaan. Sa lalaki kasi, urine and semen. No? So, sa babae, yung urethra, ihi lang ang dadaan. Because of the short tract, they are more prone to urinary tract infections. Mas madaling umakyat sa bladder. Mas madaling mag-complicate. Okay. Pag-ihi. So the micturition is a process of expelling urine out. No? Very simple lang siya. So it's governed by a reflex, pero you can control it. So it both has voluntary and involuntary control. Punta natin. So there. This is a graphic representation of how nerve signals interact to signal the bladder to expel urine. So, as I mentioned, there is voluntary and involuntary control. So, the micturition reflex is the involuntary part. Yung simpleng pag-stretch ng bladder, no, napupuno ng urine. So, pag nabanat yung layers, so yung connective tissue and muscle layers of the bladder, there are receptors there that will send signal to the spinal cord, a component of the spinal cord. In your lecture guide, yung mukhang mukha ng alien na may dalawang mata dyan, no? That's just a cut section of the spinal cord. So yung spinal cord, parang ganyan. And then when you slice on it, you look at it like this, that's just a representation of that cut surface of the spinal cord, particularly on the sacral uh, segment of the spinal cord. So, pag sinabi kasing reflex, guys, ang nerve signals mo, i-process lang siya immediately sa spinal cord, tapos matik yung effect. Wala nang isip-isip. So, those nerve signals are governed by your parasympathetic nervous system, part of the rest and digest. And then, ang direct effect niya is to uh, signal the contraction of the bladder, so pipiga si bladder. At the same time, the internal urethral sphincter is signaled to relax. Kasi pagka pareho silang contract, puputok si bladder dahil it's going to push against a closed tube, no? So dapat contract bladder, relax sphincter. Okay? And that system na na dapat coordinated occurs with the help of the pons. So, apart from the reflex being limited to spinal cord, meron ka pa ding signals coming from the brain. Pero dito lang sa may pons. So, si pons, it ensures na yung effect ng spinal reflex, ng micturition reflex na yun, make sure na hindi sabay ang contraction ng sphincter tsaka ng bladder para hindi pumutok yung pantog. But then again, because it's in the brain stem na, you don't have to think about it. The pons make sure it happens whether you think about it or not. Okay. So, during exercise or when you're busy fighting for your life, no, the sympathetic nervous system sends inhibitory signals para hindi ka maihi bigla. If you'll just imagine, no, nag-exam ka, no, agit na yung utak mo, tapos all of a sudden, napaihi ka without your control, no? So, that's not really a nice way to live. Kaya, if you're focused on one task, your urinary bladder will most likely not force you to pee unless punong-puno na siya. No? So, apart from that, you have conscious control. No? Meaning sa cerebral na. So, merong micturition center sa cerebrum ng brain, which has control over the external urethral sphincter. So, may internal sphincter yung automatic, and then meron ka external sphincter na pilit. So, say for example, you're taking an exam, ihingi ka na, uh, hindi din siya yung pag nakaramdam ka maihi, ihi ka kagad. Kaya mong magpigil. So, that, my friends, is what we call continence. No? The capacity to hold in yung dapat mo ilabas, whether feces or urine. So, trabaho yun ng micturition center na yan. To signal down. So, ma-override niya yung sistema na to. You have your system between the pons, the spinal cord, and the bladder. Na automatic, i-override niya yun para, oops, don't. Para maka-time ka pa to go to the CR bago ka maihi. Okay? So, very easy. Very short discussion lang. Uh, Sige. Yung fast facts portion, madali naman yan. Memorize lang yan. Okay? So, quick, yeah.